So if you took googly eyes and a Sharpie to your toilet paper roll,
it would be running after your butt.
or just jumping into the toilet.
Yeah.
Welcome to Behind the Sins, presented by CinemaSins.
Welcome to Behind the Sins, a weekly look at everything going on inside the world of CinemaSins. I'm Aaron Dicer, and I'm joined as always by Jonathan Watkins.
Hello, hello.
And Danae Hughes.
And stuff.
We write for CinemaSins and TV Sins and do various other things inside the CinemaSins universe as well. Danae's callback is a call forward. That's how it works on this show, because everything, all the stuff you don't hear during the show happens in the outtakes. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we do call forwards.
That's right.
For that stuff. How is everybody?
Good.
You guys took over last week.
Yeah, we did.
It was great.
Barrett was so fun to have on the show.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
Jonathan, you did great editing and making sure everything got put together.
Yeah. And Danae, you did great hosting.
I was so nervous.
Yeah?
Yeah.
This is your second time, right?
I know, but there was something about this particular time that I was like, I had that nervous energy about. And so I never really felt like I was calmed down. Plus, I was in the room by myself. And usually I have you to kind of like at least visually bounce off of and stuff. It's
a weird thing. I have a lot of respect for people who do solo podcasts. And you weren't even solo. You had people on the other end of the line that you were talking to, but it's a whole different skill level to really have a conversation with the audience in that way. We like having a conversation with you, but we have each other to like gauge, like if something's landing, if it's not landing. When during my radio time, I worked with a co-host for a long time before I went solo for about a year and a half. And when I went solo, I found myself saying the same thing over and over and over again.
Are you there? You there?
Yeah, because I wasn't getting any response. I was like, nobody's in the room laughing. Nobody's in the room commenting. Maybe I should say it a different way.
It's amazing.
So, yeah, I had to kind of work myself out of that. But then Danae came along and was my radio co-host after that. And it was all solved.
And then everything else is history and record breaking. And gosh, we're just so great.
That's right.
I also was nervous the whole time because I knew at the end I was going to talk about the criticism. And I usually get to bounce off the criticism with you. And you're like my emotional buffer. And you were gone. And I still decided to do it.
I thought you handled it really well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy stood up for you and, we're like, go away, shut up.
Well, and like it was so funny because we were both just like, we don't want to like just like call anybody out or anything. And then Barrett was just like, shut up.
I know. So that was unexpected, but also a lot of really great commentary on Twitter and Discord.
Yeah, some really nice comments.
Yeah. There was conversation about being careful with words. And so I loved that. There was even people that were like, if there was any criticism about you, this is what I would have thought it was, which tells me that other people were thinking it too. And so I'm really glad to just have somebody bring it to my conscious. And I don't think that they were trying to be jerks about it, but
it didn't seem that way.
Anytime you get criticism, you kind of feel like it might be a little bit jerky, but that I was really trying to not make assumptions that person was like angry with me. But anyways, the whole thing, the whole time I'm there, I'm like, how am I going to transition into this? And so it was just like this looming feel. The
most beautiful thing that came out of it for me was to hear how our weaknesses become our strengths.
Yeah.
And what you see when we've talked about it before as a weakness of not, having the vast encyclopedic knowledge that, Chris and Jeremy and Barrett and Jonathan have, like that's
one of my fears. But the other one is that I just don't enjoy myself when I'm watching movies.
Right. And this is
so
what I'm saying.
The same.
So those you perceive those as weaknesses. And then you hear people commenting after you talk about it saying, no, this is your strength.
Right.
Your strength is that you bring a perspective.
That's right.
Of a normie.
I'm just going and living life and stuff.
Right. Yes, exactly. You bring that perspective to the table so that the sins that you write, the things that you see, they come from a perspective that is not as drowned in pop culture. And I think that's valuable. And
what's really funny behind the scenes that's going on, I can't tell you what movie it is because it's not released yet, but we'll get to it eventually, is the same exact week that we have that conversation. I watched a movie that I do not like so much and Barrett does. And we wrote the script together and he like fake fired me over it. Because he's like, how can you not, you're fired. This is it, Danae.
I honestly did not know that Barrett liked that movie that much. That was interesting.
I'm sure he was, and this is something that Aaron and I talk about too, is the movies that I think are terrible if you watch as many as you guys do, it's really not terrible.
Right.
But my gauge
that was what I meant on my tweet.
Yes.
I was trying to give you a positive there.
You're so great.
We'll talk about that one in a couple weeks, actually.
Yeah.
That'll be a couple weeks.
I was going to say, too, I forgot to say this last week when you were talking about that. But, I mean, there's directors and screenplay writers and actors that are not huge movie fans.
Right.
And they do great work. You know, I mean, you don't have to, I don't know.
Yeah. But it is interesting. And I really loved talking about it. And I really loved the confidence to continue to just, keep doing what I do and not feel like I have to change. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that it came off well.
No, it's great. You guys did an amazing job.
And I feel super supported and I appreciate it.
But when you say you don't like yourself while you're watching a movie, it's really funny because I'm like picturing you like watching a movie just like I don't know, like hitting yourself or something. Like God,
and they just like this.
Like I'm in pain now. Like what is going on?
Yeah, it's kind of
like monastic discipline. You're like whipping yourself with leathers across the shoulders.
It sort of feels like it.
Hey, I'm married to my wife likes movies, okay, but she's not a movie buff. Like, I mean, she's nowhere near that. So
yeah, I like
it. I mean, it's fine.
It's fine.
Like, who cares?
It's great.
It's fine.
It's great. You guys ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's kick it off with the SinSide Scoop.
What's he building in there?
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
This is a true story.
We're going to take a look at the videos from the week and talk about the process of sinning them. We'll tell you a little bit about how we felt about the content in general, and then specifically the videos. We'll kick it off with TV sins. Still doing some Rick and Morty. This will be going on a little bit. We're loving getting into the Rick and Morty episodes. Mm-hmm. Last week we did Rixty Minutes, which has become known as Interdimensional Cable 1. Because they did another one of these types of episodes, but the actual title's Rixty Minutes. This is an Atkinson Dicer joint. Chris and I wrote on this. So what did you think? What do you guys think about this episode in particular? We don't need to repeat ourselves on a lot of the Rick and Morty stuff in general, but this is a really interesting, fascinating episode.
It's probably because it's the first time that they get the cable out and it becomes this sort of random infinite universe
so
kind of thing.
Improvisational, it's just
especially with the what's his name who laughs at his own
Justin Roiland.
Yeah. I remember watching this one and thinking it was really fun because it's so random and silly and goofy, and then of course now that I've gotten into the whole sinning brain and then I'm watching them with a critical eye, I'm in that same vein where it's like, well, that's just silly. That doesn't make any sense. Not that it has to 100%, but at the same time, it kind of does, Yeah. Especially for what we do.
Yeah.
But that was a fun episode for me to watch the first time.
What do you think about this episode, Jonathan?
I thought it was, I mean, the episode itself I thought was funny. This is a weird thing, but there was a movie in the early 90s called Stay Tuned with John Ritter and Pam Dauber. I think it was 92.
Yeah.
And basically the premise of that movie is that, I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but the satellite that they get ends up, I don't know if it's of alien origin, but it's something like that. Like something happens to the satellite. And so they start getting like really weird TV shows and TV channels. And I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Dan Harmon, that's exactly what he was thinking of when he did this, the way this show is, the way it shouts out to obscure stuff.
Yeah, well, it's kind of that in UHF, right? Like it's the whole UHF thing.
UHF is another great example, and we even shout out to that in the video itself. But no, it's funny. I mean, it's like a lot of parody stuff. I mean, some of it's hit, some of it's miss, but I would say there was more hits than misses here. I enjoyed the corn people.
One of the things that Chris said, because of course I asked him his thoughts.
Yeah, of course.
He also did the same thing where he was kind of comparing it to, he said he'd compare it to an issue both Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip and 30 Rock had when they would try to show the sketches that the show within a show would perform. And then they were often not funny or good, but also didn't have the feel of a sketch show. Like, yes, SNL is frequently unfunny, but each sketch has a vibe to them that registers as a sketch, whereas those two shows about sketch shows couldn't quite replicate the feel, and they always came up short, both in being funny on their own and being parodies of those sketches because there wasn't truth to them. So like that when you're talking about other shows that it reminded you of,
yeah.
he was had that same kind of a feel.
I think this does it better. Well, maybe it doesn't do it better. Maybe the stakes are just lower. I think that's what it is. Like in something like this, they can just goof. They left in him laughing at himself. Like it's obvious they don't care, right?
Yeah.
Like it's in that.
Oh, and that's kind of the fun part of Rick and Morty, though.
Right. Yeah.
Is it's just a different kind of a show.
Yeah. Now, just because you don't care doesn't mean it's not important, right?
No, right.
And so here's the interesting part that the sin that is in there about that moment is a combine of Chris and Mai's very different takes on this. Chris just wrote a sin removal. Chris thought it was hilarious, thought it was the best part of the episode, it just, and I wrote a sin about it, like basically what I just said to you, which is, yes, we know you're improvising. Improvising. Improvisationalism.
Yes.
We know you're improvising, but at the same time, can you please maintain some sense of, dramatic consistency, that kind of thing. So we kind of combine the two together.
Yeah, it pulls it. I thought that was perfect though, because it does pull at both. Like it's funny, but at the same time, it's super distracting.
I'm noticing that about a lot of Rick and Morty. A lot of Rick and Morty is like, you are hilarious, but this is kind of horrible.
It's a combination. It's almost like they don't care.
Right.
It feels like sometimes when you're watching Rick and Morty, it's like they've been given a budget and they don't care.
Right.
And so, hey, if you want us to write stuff that, we don't really care about, but you think it's great, then let's just keep doing stuff that like we don't care about.
We've been accused of the same thing.
Yeah.
So like,
exactly.
I get it. It's fun. Do it. All,
but it is
great
different.
For them, but it is different.
It is different.
Yeah.
Well, another thing I thought about while watching the show, speaking of kind of being torn, is that like I do not like gross out humor like 99% of the time. Like it's just gross. Like I just gross for the sake of being gross.
Yep.
It's just not something I enjoy. But Rick and Morty somehow finds a way to make it as smart, I guess, as you can make it be.
Yeah. And Chris said that's an episode that's actually decently funny for the most part. And he said it's hard to sin because of the infinite possibilities caveat. Mm-hmm. So when you sin these things, you have to really think about the world in which these sketches exist.
Exactly.
And that's where it's sometimes hard to see any race finding this stuff entertaining because it's so free flowing and loses some truth with this kind of comedy writing. And sometimes it's maybe even too random. So those are kind of the notes that he wrote on it.
Yeah, and the two of you even point out that one where I can't even remember what they called it. Was it like ball mongers or something like that?
Oh,
and it ended up just being like an A-Team show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where they make it sound like something like they're all excited about like, hey, we just found this show and you're over here doing this, but then you go watch the show and it's like, yeah, but it's just the A-Team. Like, why is that interesting? Just because it has like this name, So
well, and
there were a few things like that.
Here's another thing I want to talk about, and we do sin it a couple times in the video in a couple different places. Infinity messes everything up. When you say there are infinite worlds and infinite channels and infinite shows, it means that probably every show you tune into should be almost unrecognizable to you, because some worlds are going to have characters whose visual perception is different than ours. Somewhere, you know what I'm saying? Like the fact that all these characters and all these shows are humanoid is kind of silly.
Yeah.
Right. Even though they're corn with human arms and human legs and human facial features. And so it's very obvious. And obviously this is because that's what we can relate to and see. But at the same time, when you talk about infinite possibilities,
it's almost like he should have had like the humanoid filter on, and then it would have been
right. Something like that.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff you shouldn't even be able to see. Like some of it should be like in different dimensions.
Yeah. You would need like 6 eyes to perceive
that's what I'm talking about. Or even they run into the same thing with the thing that they give the rest of the family, where they can see based on their
their
DNA kind of what their possible other lives would be, and they can see into their other possible lives. Well, and then they give it to their daughter, and she's like missing in some of hers. Well, they should have been missing in some of theirs too. It's infinite, possible. Right. If she can be missing in some of hers, I don't know. So it's just
some of the other continuity stuff that Chris was talking about was the world where the guy gets to sell the fake doors. He can afford a 90-second commercial, or a guy with ants in his eyes who hilariously points out to a dryer when talking about refrigerators, but also conveniently forgets that the crew had to film the commercial, and apparently no one wants to tell him what's going on. So it's like there's just all these different ways. Like if you stop and you look at these commercials or you look at these moments, they fall apart. And one of them is the infinite, thing. I like that you guys pointed out the infinite thing because, and I talked about this before. I'm kind of just one of those happy consumers. Like this is funny, and I don't really think critically about it. Whenever I'm watching
Speaking
it.
of like struggling with watching something, that guy with ants in his eyes was.
Wasn't that uncomfortable?
I don't know what it was about that.
So
visually.
uncomfortable. That was so uncomfortable.
Being on fire, who cares? But ants in your eyes.
Oh, it was just hard. That was for me too. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, and probably because I blocked it from my mind.
Whereas here's the truth of things: ants crawling over your eyeball doesn't hurt. Isn't that weird?
Have you had that happen?
No,
before?
but it does, you can touch your eye. Like it's not. I mean, if they bit your eye, maybe. But I mean,
what do they poop on your eye? like microscopic ant poop.
Pink eye. Danae, pink eye is what happens.
Oh no!
Then.
What if
Put it
pink
that
eye
way.
is? It's ant poop. Oh no!
I don't want to find out what ants on my eyes feels like.
Yeah.
Can we talk about some of our favorite kind of standout?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Unless you have some other thoughts that you wanted to share.
No, I'm good. Go for it.
I'm with Jonathan about the corn, just starting off with but it was like the show itself didn't do any corn related jokes, probably because they're corn and they don't think that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the corny corn popping kernel of truth is a too corny thing. I loved that.
Thanks.
And I was like, that's an Aaron one. It's got to be. It has to be.
I do love my puns.
Vote Aaron on that one. I also really love this helmet going straight to Hellman's for people who put the utensils on the counter.
Listen, that was
that you?
Yeah, that was infuriating to me. I'm just like, I didn't know which part to be more upset about. I didn't know if to be more upset that he was spreading peanut butter on top of the jelly instead of on the other slice of bread.
Let's talk about that.
I do that, by the way.
I know people do that. And those people, including you, I don't understand.
But what I do is I scoop out the jelly with a spoon, so I'm not getting like peanut butter in the jelly jar.
Right, that's important.
And I just like it mixed up, man. I mean, that's how I eat my
well,
Thanksgiving
when you put
dinner,
the pieces
too. Like,
together, it mixes
I
up.
turn it into like a casserole.
No, okay. Oh, yum. Casserole. Oh, sorry. I guess I'm hungry. I don't know.
Wait, Danae, do you do this too?
No, well, I don't eat peanut butter and jelly.
Okay, fair enough.
Not because I hate it, just I don't ever think about peanut butter and jelly as an option. When I go to the refrigerator and I open it up.
It's probably the food other than pizza that I've had the most in my life.
And I'm like, I don't have anything to eat. I grab my keys and go to Taco Bell. I don't go, oh, but I have peanut butter and jelly and bread. I always forget that's an option.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the comments, there were many people who were totally with Jonathan on like, this is how I make mine. And here's why. Even though it does eventually touch the bread, I guess when you put the jelly on the bread at the beginning, it starts to soak in and they want less soakage.
Well, then jelly the bread last. I don't. What?
Oh, I do peanut butter first, but then I scoop the jelly out, put it on top
of
and
it.
Spread it.
But what does it matter, Aaron? If it's going to touch no matter what,
Yeah,
like what does it matter?
It doesn't matter, Aaron.
No, it does matter because then the distribution becomes way off because you're squooshing the peanut butter around. You don't know how much jelly necessarily you've put on there.
People need to understand you are every bite has that perfect balance person.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you get one bite and it's mostly peanut butter and the next bite it's mostly jelly, your day is off.
And then just the mess of it. It's just, I don't know. It just seems so much more messy.
It's hilarious.
But
I can't wait to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in front of you.
I know, right?
That's my
really
torture.
excited
At
about
Sin
this.
Week.
I'm doing it on purpose.
Forget waterboarding. just make a PB&J wrong.
I also just wanted to say, just in case my husband decides to ever listen to this podcast, he absolutely hates dirty utensils touching the counter.
That just
that's gross.
Like
he absolutely hates it.
Peanut butter and you just set that right on the counter.
Put a goddamn paper towel. How hard is that? You get a paper towel, you set it next to what you're doing. It's like people people don't know what to do with the eggshells. It's like when they break an egg open. It's like have a paper towel handy.
Seriously, you want ants in your eyes? That's how you get ants in your eyes.
There you go.
I also when at the outtake where he's eating out of that bowl, is it like what is that bowl?
It's poop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when he says, "What is it? This shit is delicious." All I can hear is "these chips are good," and I so wanted that to be the outtake. And I actually messaged Jonathan about it. I was like, "How funny would it have been?"
People were surprised. They were like, "How did you get the Knives Out audio for that outtake?" And I was like, "Well, it's in the trailer, so that makes it a a bit easier."
Another one, and Jonathan, jump in and talk. You mean like just stop me? The fake door.com. In the comments was mentioned by Alicia Nagel that the fakedoor.com is actually for sale. So I went to go look at what it would like, what you could do. You have to buy it for $4,000.
Yeah.
And then it's $12 a year after that.
Yeah.
So I think it's so interesting to think that there is a random thing that's put onto a very popular, cartoon, and that drives up prices for a ridiculous website.
Well, the website is owned by the TV company. We even talk about it in the Sins video. They own that website.
But
so
they
if they're
have
selling
it for sale.
maybe they're selling it now. I don't know.
Yeah, it's for sale. And like if you go to any of the ones and you type in Factorio, like you can buy it for $4,000.
That's
At least as of the recording of this podcast.
I think the only one we haven't mentioned that I had written down was I like the I guess in their world, Gaspar Noé finds a way to push the envelope.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, that is funny.
But I had the jelly on top of the peanut butter down. We already talked
That's
about that.
so funny. Good episode.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We'll keep doing them. Speaking of shows, we'll probably keep doing episodes of.
But not.
What?
No.
Why not?
I don't want to.
Let's talk about The Office.
No.
Today, you hate this show.
It's weird.
Cringe. You're just not a fan of cringe humor in any form.
I'm not either.
I don't think I am.
Yeah.
I think I'm learning that about myself.
But how was Rick and Morty not cringe humor?
It is. Rick and Morty is cringe humor, but then I think it's because it's a cartoon or because it's just a different, I don't know, it's a different.
I will say this about The Office, though, because this is still the first season, right? This is the second episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is episode number 2.
Yeah.
It does get the cringe versus humor balances out starting in the second season.
That is what many, many, many people in the comment section.
The first season is just like, whoa.
So many people. And as I've been going through the comments, they're like, if you can make it through the first season, it gets better. And
it does. It really turns into a really great sitcom.
My
And the
husband
first
loves
season's
the show.
weird too because if I remember correctly, they're basically just remaking the episodes from the British version.
Okay.
And so I think it's kind of weird on a couple levels. Like it's like a copy of a copy, and it's super cringy.
And the British version is super cringy. Like that's the whole point of the British version.
It is.
Well, and then people in the comments are like, you guys need to just like stop being so sensitive and things like that. And
did we get called a name? Did we get called the
social justice warrior?
Yeah, SJW. Did we get called an SJW?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I don't, at least not that I saw. Maybe we did. I don't know. But I just thought it was interesting because there's people that are like, get through this one and it gets a little bit easier. And then there's people that are like, you are way too sensitive. And the sins that you have are like, don't watch the British version if this is triggering you because it's really like.
I've seen the British version. I think the British version is actually a little better. And it is cringy, but it finds a balance that this first season doesn't.
Well, especially this episode is.
Yeah, this episode's just not funny. I'm sorry.
It's that's racist. The episode, it's.
Yeah.
Here's what I think I could probably, maybe get into the show. My husband loves this show. And so whenever he heard the music playing, he came across the room and he's like, oh, are you watching The Office? Oh, that's exciting. What episode is it? Oh, in this episode, blah, blah, blah happens. He's one of those guys. So he knows everything.
I related deeply to you when you were talking about how he subtly offers hints at possible sins. Jen does the same thing.
It's cute. I love it.
I love it too.
Yeah.
And actually sometimes I will use those. I'll twist them around or whatever.
And here's what I don't like about The Office for sinning purposes. It's all in a freaking office. There's not like you have to find ways to sin either the relationships or there's something more that has to happen beyond just what's happening in that space, which means I suddenly have to become an office expert and I don't want to. Like I don't want to understand the complexities of this relationship or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So thank God for fan sites and for blog posts and for a husband that I can ask super random questions, and thank God he knows because that kind of comes in handy. So as I was watching this video to talk about today, because I didn't write on Diversity Day.
But I haven't even said Office Diversity Day. It was a Dicer Watkins joint. So Jonathan and I wrote on this.
I was having triggers of sending it myself for upcoming episodes. And I was like, oh no, I had kind of hoped that it would just disappear. And it's sort of funny too, because it starts off with the Twilight Zone, intro, which tells you where we thought that it was going to be released was after Twilight Zone. So I'm like, oh yeah, this one. Great.
Yes, I think somebody in one of the comments said, I think TV Sins needs a continuity department.
Well, it's not.
We got to switch stuff around. Got to switch stuff around sometimes.
But anyways, it's okay. It's just not my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not my favorite show. I don't think I like it as much as like people that are huge fans of it, but it definitely has really funny episodes, and it's got a lot of really interesting characters, and it's got a lot of really good comedic actors. It is, especially people that show up later.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I even like season 1, even though it's a little cringy. I think it's hard. I think its heart is in the right place. Like even in that first season, and we do sin the fact that it almost, like, some of the heart stuff almost doesn't work because of how cringy it is, like, because these people become almost enablers as opposed to what the show is showing us, which is they're trying to be, friends, and so kind of, like balancing that and figuring that out. But yeah, no, I enjoy the show. My wife loves it. I think it's her favorite sitcom of all time.
Wow.
So, yeah, she's watching them all again right now. That's what she does in her downtime, is she watch episodes of The Office.
So does Justin.
I'm
Our spouses should hang out.
Watching it all the way through for the first time when I can.
You're watching it all the way through, right? The whole thing?
I'm trying to, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I find that to be very impressive. I'm trying to immediately forget.
What about the video itself? What do you guys think?
Barrett kind of weighed in because I think he was shadowing on this one.
Yeah, he shadowed on it. Yep.
And he said that he kept coming back to the fact that Michael would have been fired on the spot if he did what he did in the staff meeting.
Yeah, totally.
That kind of stuff is really the only stuff that takes me out of this show. So I think he was kind of saying, like, a lot of times maybe he can enjoy the show, but then there's these moments that happen, the really uncomfortable racist moment that he's like, I can't, I'm out,
And you will hear people say, well, maybe not. There are obviously horrible bosses who do say stuff like that, but not in front of the administration and the person who could end up, firing you. Like, it's, it just takes
and there's a whole underlying thread. I mean, there's a whole underlying storyline. I believe it's it might even go into the second season. I can't remember now, where they might be closing a branch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're kind of sitting there thinking, like, well, if that's the case, then wouldn't this be a pretty easy decision?
Yeah.
If you've got like this, I mean, or at least getting rid of him.
Yeah.
You would think, I mean, if it was a situation where they didn't have a choice, that would be one thing. But I mean, they kind of work into the storyline. Yeah, it's weird. It
is. Yeah, that kind of stuff drives me nuts. And it reminded me whenever I was watching it that it kind of drives me nuts. I've worked in an office environment before, multiple.
Oh, I have too.
Where, you do have to deal with really uncomfortable personalities. And so I do relate to that. I do kind of find that entertaining to kind of go, this person, I totally had that. But then to see like the shenanigans that happen amongst them as they try to find friendships and all that part I can kind of get behind. I liked Matthew's comment, Matthew West. I don't know if he's the Christian artist, but Matthew West said that this whole episode is one giant that's racist sin. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's so true. That is how I was feeling the entire time watching this one. Like, that's just the whole thing.
Yeah.
I like the phone hanging up one too, a lot.
Which one was that?
The rant about the phone being hung up, like that it wouldn't have a dial tone, like what's happening in this?
Was this the time where, how when you hang up phones in movies, the person still listening will hear a dial tone?
Yeah.
But in this case, they actually hang up the clicker.
Yeah.
So there would be
there'd be nothing there.
Yeah, like
you would literally hear silence.
It's like doubling down on the stupid dial tone sin,
And I think I even remember Barrett making a comment about that, because we've used that type. We've used a variation on that sin. I mean, that's been going on since CinemaSins early days.
Yeah.
Because that happens a lot in movies and whatnot. And I remember Barrett saying, oh, that's a good one to be able to come back to, because that was like a perfect moment for that.
An oldie but a goldie.
Yeah. But again, it's different. Mm-hmm. It's like a whole nother level of...
That's what I'm...
how is he hearing anything?
Yeah. My favorite one was the Jim being able to stand up right now. When he goes, oh, come on.
Yeah, I had that written down.
Yeah. And that one got a lot of love in the comments, too. Overall, really good one, though.
Yeah. All right. Let's head on to music video sins. Katy Perry, Cozy Little Christmas.
Did you just say woof?
I just said blah.
Oh, I thought you said woof.
I don't like Christmas songs very much. I actually like Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the holidays.
Just don't like people singing about the things you like.
I've just never been a huge fan, especially of like the pop songs. I've just never been a huge fan.
Well, Jonathan, all I want for Christmas is you.
It's one of my wife's favorite songs.
That's because it's so great.
That would be one of the better ones.
Danae, what's your feeling on Christmas music?
Oh, It happens all the time.
Yes.
Every year, just there it is again.
Danae strikes me as somebody who does not like Christmas.
I'm such a Scrooge.
Oh, can I tell you something really quick, by the way? I should have, this made me think of it because we're talking about Christmas, but, and I don't know if we have younger listeners occasionally, but my daughter, I just found out last night, figured out Santa Claus, and it was kind of sad.
Figured out that he's real?
Let's just say this, parents, you know your situation as you're listening to this.
You might want to skip ahead.
Yeah.
Also, why are you letting your kids listen to our show?
Well, that's why I said figured out Santa Claus. That's all I said.
Yeah. Well, no, because I want to talk about it. So I'm just saying skip ahead a few minutes because I have questions.
Santa rant incoming. Prepare yourself, everybody.
Time for a little Rant-a-Claus.
3, 2, 1. Jingle bells.
No. I'm not. I don't have a Rant-a-Claus.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to hear Jonathan's story. Like, so what happened? How do you feel about it? What has been your practice with her before? This is a huge thing for parents.
We've always let her believe it. We've never dissuaded that. Now, come to find out, she's probably known a little longer than we thought. I think it was people at school told her was essentially what happened. Mm. And then she just kind of figured it out on her own. I mean, she's smart. But I think there for at least a year or two, she just still wanted to believe. But then finally last night, she just decided to admit to us that she was cool with it. I think I was more sad than she was.
Okay, because I just got this question in my Twitter DMs. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to read this to you guys, and I want to know how you would respond. It says, "Hi, Aaron. I have a question for you. Not a movie or pop culture question, but a parenting one. The kind I would ask Mr. Rogers if I had access to his Twitter DMs.
Wow.
I hope you don't find this weird or crossing a boundary. That certainly isn't my intent. I've come to see you as a friend whom I haven't gotten to meet in person. Sin Week 2021 is a goal. Anyway, here's the question. Santa, I know you've got 4 boys to adolescence, and that's no small feat. How did you and your wife deal with the Santa discussion? I've got 10 and 7-year-old boys, and they are in this weird place of wanting to believe, but really knowing that something is off. We've never used Santa as a threat. In our house, we have always said Santa only wants you to do your best, but he knows you're a child and a human, and so you aren't always well behaved. They love the cookie ritual and the letter writing ritual. They also are well aware that the Santas we see out in the world are people dressed up. They're excited to keep up the magic for the small children at their dad's office party this year. I've got the oldest children in my friend group, so I don't have anyone to ask. Any suggestions?
I love that he said, was it he? I'm sorry.
She.
I love that she said they never use Santa as a threat, though, because we did that too. Like, we definitely made a point to not do that.
The evil Santa?
Or just saying
just
that
like you better be good or you won't get any Santa won't bring you any gifts.
We never.
Danae is giving a look of gleam in her eye.
Shut up.
Like, no, you got this look. You got this glint of joy. Like,
use it for
make
punishment.
them behave. Use it for punishment.
Oh, that's funny.
God.
And we did Elf on the Shelf too, up until I guess we're not doing it this year now because she doesn't.
So Iris is aging.
It's true.
She's getting older. She speaks. She understands conversations.
Yeah.
She
sings Santa on the television.
So what you guys are right in it. Like, this is the time that you guys get to figure out and decide how you're approaching this thing.
Yeah, I'm realizing I probably need to ask Justin
so
what
you guys haven't had
he
the
wants to
conversation.
do. Because he is the one in our family who is really in love with Christmas. He loves the holiday season. He wants to decorate and get the tree out and everything. And I'm just like, can I just take a nap? You know, like it's just a regular day or whatever. And then all of a sudden it sneaks up at the end and I forget that people need presents or whatever. And then I run to the store and I'm like, here, have this, Post-it notepad and this cool new pen that I definitely didn't get at Office Depot yesterday.
Christmas present. You love office supplies.
So yeah, I think I'm transitioning as an adult into thinking about what it means to maybe other people and how to join in the, again, spoiler alert, lie that Santa is a thing. Mm-hmm. My instinct is just to be truthful, but I also want to make sure that my kid isn't the one that's going to school being like, Santa's a lie. My mom said Santa was invented by Hallmark. I don't know what I would say.
It's lying, but I don't know.
But,
here's the thing. No judgment.
But as you're talking, like when you're reading her message and kind of like, I'm like, oh, there is this magicalness to Santa that kind of becomes that first, go with me here, it becomes the first letdown of your youth when you realize that it's all a facade. And I think maybe that's not a bad thing to experience, is like realizing that something that you were really excited about kind of isn't true or whatever.
There are certainly...
that's not necessarily a bad thing to go through, So maybe there's like a middle ground. I don't know.
Yes.
I got the impression that my daughter too, though, even though she was, I think she's a little disappointed that it isn't real. And why wouldn't you be?
Right.
But she also, I think, was kind of excited that she knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Like she's in on the universal joke. Aaron, what do you got to say?
I will tell you our approach with no judgment, and then I will tell you a story. Our approach has always been to answer every question our children ask us honestly. We don't set out to,
Mom, Dad, how much do you have in the bank account right now?
Ruin. But here's the thing. But honestly doesn't mean necessarily being aggressive or cruel about it or anything like that. So our kids never believed in Santa Claus because as soon as they would ask us, we'd have a conversation about it and say, here's the beauty of the season. Here's what it represents. Here's it was an actual person that would give to people in need, and that's a beautiful thing to honor.
You can be Santa.
Saint Nicholas was a real human being that did some cool stuff. That kind of thing, right? So it's kind of being honest, but in a way that honors the joy of the tradition and those kind of things. But that's just been our approach is we don't want a situation later in life where our kids can look at us and go, you specifically lied to me about this and, whatever. And there are horror stories of parents who don't handle it exactly perfectly where it really does. Their children are like, they pushed it too far and their children are like, I don't know what to believe about anything you taught me when I was growing up.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. There are those occasional horror stories. I don't think that's normal. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way it's approached. Having said all that, here's my story. I will never forget that one of my boys was interacting with other children about the Santa Claus thing. And we found out that he was telling the truth, and we were sad that he was kind of ruining. And we had talked to them, and he just maybe had forgotten, not to do that or whatever.
Everybody's in on the joke,
right?
Everybody's in on the secret,
right? Yeah, it's not your place to ruin it for somebody else.
This is a nationwide thing. This is a worldwide.
But you know how you talk, Jonathan, about she was excited to know. I think it probably came from that he was excited that he knew the truth,
right?
And that he wanted to tell the truth or whatever.
No.
So it wasn't so much that he told, but we found out how he told. So they're talking about Santa Claus down there. The kids are like, and he's like, no, guys, Santa's dead.
Oh, no.
Because it
was an actual person a long time ago.
Oh, no.
It's like, guys, you don't understand. Santa's dead, man.
So you've got kids thinking either A, that he's just dead and so he doesn't exist, or B, there's like a freaking ghost.
No.
Yeah.
Aaron, you're going to have to put in the show notes like the spoiler section for Santa and then say if you want to skip through, start at this timestamp.
Yeah.
I will say when it comes to Christmas, though, I got pretty irritated with the whole Christmas season. But once I had my daughter, it like a light switch just like went on.
That's so cool.
And I've loved it ever since. Because just living it through her eyes and through her enjoyment of it has just been a blast.
Oh, stop it.
It's like I don't mind, like when people talk about having to take their kids to shitty kids movies, I don't care because she's enjoying it, right? So
yeah.
Jonathan, that's so sweet.
I'm kind of enjoying it in a weird way because it's just seeing her fall in love with movies and different things in life, books or whatever it is. I think that's part of the fun of being a parent.
Well, that was a fun conversation.
Oh, I'm not done yet.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say, I feel like, you said, Jonathan, like your light's coming on. I feel like mine is sort of like maybe the wires aren't quite 100% wired correctly and they're flickering a little bit. Like the light switch is on, but it's still like going and so, but I love this conversation because it reminds me, even as we go into this holiday season, I do need to talk to Justin and find out what he feels, but it is kind of fun to find those traditions. And as you're talking about Santa being a real person, being Saint Nick, I thought if we do end up kind of being honest with her, we might start a tradition of like, we can all be Santa to a kid and really try to. I like the giving part of the holidays.
Yes.
I don't like the consumerism part of the holidays. Yes. And so this conversation just reminds me, like, I want to make sure that in our family, we kind of remember what we can make it about instead of getting lost in all of the
I just find that once like fall starts, like once the holiday seasons kind of start, I just think in general, more people are, I don't know, people just seem to be in better spirits in general. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah,
too.
The holiday spirit.
Yeah.
I huge recommend for you and your family this Christmas on Netflix. Klaus or Klaus.
Yeah, I still gotta watch that.
It's a new animated film from Netflix, and it's one of the best new Christmas movies I've seen in a long time.
Cool.
And it is exactly about what you're talking about.
Like a G kid thing, like Iris would like it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think so. I mean, there may be a couple parts that are frightening, but I mean, more frightening than...
She's really getting into the snow monster from Frozen 1.
Yeah.
She's drawing his face, and she's like, "Here comes mommy." Oh, he's mad. And then she'll be like he screams, "Don't come back!" at one point in time, and she'll
But I think
it
honors the spirit of the person that Santa Claus is based on in a really cool way. So I would definitely recommend that.
Anyway,
too bad we don't have like a section of the show where you could have recommended that.
Yeah, it was weird. So that was Katy Perry.
Yeah,
that was the Katy Perry
Cozy
video.
Little Christmas. Moving on to CinemaSins.
You guys like this song?
It's I don't know. It's forgettable. It's just it's the same as every other shot at a Christmas classic. It sounds, I don't know. Maybe it'll catch on. Maybe it won't.
You didn't think it was creepy that she was potentially having sexual relations?
I thought
Santa?
it was goofy.
I
just thought it was goofy.
Potential. I think she absolutely was, and every single one of the animated characters was their children. Barrett said that there was a lot of stuff going on during the writing of this script. It was all just kind of all happened really, really fast. And he wanted to give major props to the Maiden team, give them a lot of credit for how quickly that they worked to kind of make sure that this video actually got out. I mean, the video was ridiculous. He also said, like, how he's kind of writing about the process. And then he goes, also, we had to blur the top of Katie's butt crack just in case.
I saw that.
I just thought that was a funny little side note.
Wait, is her crack blurred? I wish I had a blur walking around with me every day.
Anyway.
All right, I think we can move on. Although I will say I was glad reindeer massage was the sentence, because as soon as I saw those reindeers giving that massage, everything in me wanted to run away. Can you imagine?
The hooves on you.
The hooves? Ugh. All right,
I'm sorry. You're saying I was there was a reindeer massaging her. I didn't catch that. I was too busy. I'm just kidding.
Yes, there was. CinemaSins videos for the week included Toy Story 4. This was a Dicer Hughes script. I assume we've all seen it. So what are your thoughts on the movie in general? Jonathan, we'll start with you.
We actually talked about this a little bit on Behind. I think was it our first Behind the Sins episode where this was your Beyond the Sins?
Oh, was it? I don't remember that.
It was one of them. But I somewhat remember that. But no, I've now watched it twice. I saw it in the theater and I watched it again before watching this video and with my daughter. And I feel the exact same. It's one of those weird movies where I feel the exact same after watching it twice. But I think it's fine. I don't think it's anywhere near the brilliance of the first three or like top to middle tier Pixar, but I think it's good.
So I didn't see Toy Story 2 or 3, so I went straight from 1 to 4.
Yeah.
So I'm missing any kind of emotional connection that anyone has with any character.
When did you see 1 though?
When it came out. Okay. And I haven't watched it since, really. So, but I did see some, what I did to prepare for watching this one and sending it is I went and I watched the Sins videos for 1, 2, and 3. And I took note of how many seconds of logos was in each of them so that I can create that combined logo Sin.
Yeah.
And so I got to see from those videos how the animation had been progressing.
Sure, yeah.
And it was really interesting to kind of watch how I love the first Toy Story. And then I ended up watching it with Iris the next week. I just put it up on the TV and she was really enjoying it, of course, because it's huge, toys and stuff. And I think the animation still holds up really, really well, even though it's so old and it's so clunky and chunky and lacks, rendering and shadows.
Did you watch it on Disney
Plus? It's still my
Plus?
favorite of the series.
Did you watch it on Disney Plus?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the 4K restored versions.
Oh, interesting.
Which is probably why it looks so great.
It looked great. I mean, it was still, like I said, chunky and blocky. It's the original animation. They've just cleaned it up, made it, so much more higher resolution. Yeah.
So,
but I also read just real quick, like story recaps from the movies, so I could kind of get a general idea of where we were starting. Because obviously I missed stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it kind of stands alone too. You sort of they kind of bring you up to speed essentially at the beginning. So I kind of was like, okay, I just skipped over whatever happened in the other two.
We even send the, kind of the previously on
Didn't we
Toy
already
Story.
do this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was that kind of, I just think the animation on this is just amazing.
It's incredible.
It blows my mind. There's so much, like, if you're looking at the first one, the room has got like a few things in it, and the floor is just a flat floor. And if you're watching this one and they're in an antique shop where everything you zoom in on 4K is in perfect clarity, and
that
there's
cat,
just
man, I can't get over that cat.
it was really impressive. And I think that was almost what stood out to me in this one more than the story itself. I think the story is supposed to be about, Woody kind of letting go of his purpose as a toy and kind of coming into his own person and sort of taking control of his own future and choosing to do something not for a child. And that's really emotional.
Especially if you're at my stage of life, because this is a movie about what it means to empty nest. This is the Toy Story movies have been this incredible journey of parenting in a lot of ways. Like the first one is kind of about the joy, remembering the joy of being a child. The second one is, about the responsibility of bringing somebody along. The third one is about what it means to be family, like what it means to live life together. And then this fourth one is about what it means to kind of say goodbye and be alone again. Or not alone, but in a different stage of your life.
Yeah.
And
his identity was so tied into taking care of a child, and now he's finding this new identity.
I do feel like, and this is one of the things why I think this one is just fine for me. I do feel like this was still kind of covered in the third one.
I think it's different enough for me. They all have a lot of the same themes.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Like, it's not a bad movie. I don't want to come across.
No, I didn't.
No, I know, but I just, for some reason, I don't know. It's a little more forgettable for me, I guess, than the other ones, and I felt like they were kind of reiterating a lot of the things they had just done before, and that was kind of the beauty of the first three for me, was that they, it felt, I guess, a little more organic, but I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying.
I if it's not obvious, I love it. I love this movie. I love this series.
Mr. Pixar.
I totally admit my biases. And
nothing wrong with that.
For me, I don't even know how to handle these movies as far as like ranking them and putting it, like, I just think they're all four superior works of art. If I was forced, I think they've gotten just microscopically better each time. I think I would have 4 as my favorite right now, and 3 as my second favorite. But again, just bare, like, they're all just so good.
I think I would actually go in order.
Yeah.
I think I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, because I recently rewatched 2. I hadn't seen it in a while.
Yeah.
And I think I actually like that one a little more than 3.
Yeah, it's really good.
I was having just recently watched 1, and then I've got this little kid. I realized that I was kind of skipped over some of the stuff that was like this intense, like, scary dolls and blowing up dolls and torture. There's like a lot of torture in that one. I kind of forgot about that.
Don't old yeller your kid like
no,
Phoebe's mom did.
We watched a little.
Well, and you have to understand too. She's not seeing things the way you are.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Because like I said, my daughter was in love with animated movies that actually creep her out now. But when she was like 3 or 4, they didn't at all. Now she watches them. She's like, oh, I can't believe I like that. That's scary.
My kid's also somebody who watched 25 seconds of WWE and choked a kid out the next day. So I don't want to walk into her room and she's waterboarding her dolls. You know what I mean?
I don't remember the waterboarding scene.
WWE. I will give you that one. But I'm talking about animated movies.
Did I totally miss the waterboarding scene in Toy Story? I just totally missed that.
Anyway, for Toy Story 4, I had a good time watching it. Good. I think this one was easy for me to sin, which I love. I love it when that happens, that I was able to kind of find my groove in this one. I really enjoyed the stuffed animals from the fair, that are kind of tied together and their personalities. And then like,
was that the Key and Peele?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh God. The way that they delivered their lines, like you could tell, I don't know, that they were like best friends, which now makes total sense because they were riffing off of each other really, really well. But then also like the moment when the sheep turns around, has 3 heads, and one goes, no, like that got me. I thought that was so great. But particularly, and we didn't do a lot of, I don't think we did any sins on this one. I think I wrote some stuff, but momentum and script is really important. And I'm sure it got cut for perfect reasons, but we didn't go into their like other world.
Oh,
you know?
so great.
But those moments were so funny because
where they're trying to figure out how to get the key.
And murder people and stuff.
Yeah.
I found that to be quite hilarious.
They follow her home and she's got wine in the bathtub.
You know what? I think every sin I wrote in my script that I submitted was Jeremy giving sins back for how horribly wrong it was. You know, like playing on the part of the narrator giving sins back to a movie because something is kind of dark and twisted rather than it being like this animation. I mean, we gave a sin back for the animation changes and just how far they've come. We gave a sin back, I think, for the Wall-E B reference, which I'll talk about in Keeping Tabs. But then I think when I wrote the script, everyone that I wrote was something like how funny it was. Just the idea that this the narrator is just this dark humor, like laughing like a maniacal evil man in the background, that this kid's movie, the thing that he loves about it is these murderous plush toys. I thought that would have been really, really funny. And maybe I don't remember. I don't think we actually did that, though.
No, I don't think we cut that in.
Because you cut that because you don't like me. I'm kidding. That was a joke. That was a joke. That was a joke.
I think you're swell, Danae.
That was a joke.
I think you're swell. All right, let's talk about the video itself. Jonathan, since you didn't write on it, what are some of the things that
First off,
you enjoyed?
Is it of your opinion, since we were talking about creepy sex in the Katy Perry video, are Woody and Bo Peep boning? Like, is that a thing?
I don't know. You know what? I think we are supposed to assume the toy world that they've presented to us is sexless. I don't think that
you can't sell that to Polly Pocket and He-Man.
I know, right? That's why that stood out so much. By the way,
God, I totally forgot about that till you just said it.
By the way, it's not Polly Pocket.
Oh, whatever it was.
Giggles.
I don't care.
I hope it's not Polly Pocket. That'd be creepy.
There was one time we were talking about, like, was it a joke? Was it something in pop culture? I cannot remember. All I remember is talking about if like a small creature, let's say a mouse, and like a giraffe had sex, it would just be running miles and miles back and forth. Is that like a joke?
Yes, that is a joke.
Okay, I don't remember the joke, but I remember when someone told me that, just a visual of, this sort of like poor mouse, right? Like having to run, I'm going to give a kiss and I'm going to do something else. And then it's just like all this stuff.
That's Giggles and He-Man.
It's Giggles and He-Man, man. That's all I could think about.
Nice. But in all seriousness, though, I like that you guys brought up Andy never questioning, like, finding Woody in weird places.
Thank you, right? Like, this must have been happening his entire life.
Yeah.
This is a poltergeist moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, he never questions the Woody.
And you guys also called out the stuff at the end about them, like the whole thing. One thing that did take me out of the movie was them forcing the dad to like drive to the carnival. And which I thought was interesting because so many people gave Finding Dory crap for the whole sequence at the end where the squid is driving the truck.
Right.
But like, at least that was like, I could at least see kind of how they were attempting to do it. I couldn't figure out at all how the toys were able to get through to the dad.
Yeah. To
do any of this.
Yeah, all they could control was
really good that you guys called it out.
The brake pedal. Like, why did he eventually steer that direction? How?
Because the directions, they were telling him the directions to go.
Yeah, but he stopped following those.
But yeah, at some point you're just like, no. And then also, if they're messing with the brakes and the gas and you look down and there's toys underneath your pedals, you take the toy out and you chuck it in the back of the vehicle and you take back control of your car.
Yeah.
It also,
I always got the impression the adults couldn't hear the toys. Like, well, I guess the kids can't either, but...
Well,
no, they can.
They can. Right there from Toy Story 1. I think Toy Story 1 tries to make clear the rules of the universe are that if the toys want to be heard, they can be heard, but they don't have to be heard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that gives them a little bit of leeway.
Yeah, that's when you're trying to send the continuity of this whole world, it just falls apart so incredibly.
Well, the rules of the universe make sense in some areas, but when it comes to sentience, they don't make sense at all.
Nope.
So
one of my favorite sins was the one you wrote about the toilet paper, Aaron.
Yes.
That one cracked me up.
I get it.
Oh, I didn't do that on purpose.
Cracked you up.
I wrote something similar, and it was maybe one of those where we both had kind of a similar approach. But I just love the idea of everybody having to think about their toilet paper having eyeballs and a soul or something.
Listen, what sets it into motion is the fact that Forky remembers his purpose from before he was, brought to life.
Whatever. Yeah.
And if that's the case, every single object in our world is aware of its purpose.
If it has eyeballs and has a name written on the shoe and has been loved by a person, I guess.
No, that's just when they come to life.
Yeah.
What I'm saying about Forky is...
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
I get it.
Okay.
But it's like once you bring it to life, then it has memories.
Right.
So if you took googly eyes and a Sharpie to your toilet paper roll.
It would be running after your butt.
Or just jumping into the toilet.
Yeah. I need poop on me. It's my purpose.
Wipe.
Which again, when we send it, but that doesn't make sense why Forky wants to be in the trash. I mean, you know.
But it's just it's just like it's supposed to be fun.
And it is fun. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I enjoyed me some Forky.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. Anything else from the video itself?
I really like talking about, we did several sentient things, but we did different angles on the sentience because there was one where they're in the antique and I wrote the one about like the narrator going, okay, so now I'm thinking about sentience and like what makes it come to life. And then the one right after that is like, also, okay, so Mrs. Potato Head, if she takes off her eyeball and gives the eyeball to someone else, is she looking at somebody else's eyeball or does it like attune to her soul or whatever?
Right.
I spent way too long thinking about how that worked. And I'm glad that it kind of made it, into the script.
Yeah.
I also liked, Aaron, that you fought for the How's the Peepin'.
How's the Bo Peepin'?
Yeah, that one made it in. I liked that too.
Yeah.
Guilt Skip. I was really proud of that one because I felt like I did a little play on words.
Yeah.
And also the editing, huge props to Jonathan on this one because this one we actually had multiple things we had to kind of go back in and like, when like you're right, I wrote one about Bo Peep jumping up onto a shelf and it's just this impossible jump. It doesn't make any sense in physics, but to kind of get the visual perfectly right. So Jonathan could do that. And so, that's up to the editor to figure out how to kind of move things around. And so congratulations, Jonathan. You did great on that one.
Yeah. Good job.
So, but yeah, I liked it. It was fun.
It was a lot of fun. Let's move on to Men in Black International. It is Danae week at in the CinemaSins universe. Good. Atkinson Hughes.
That's good, though.
Danae,
sometimes
Chris
you get them back to back.
Yeah, it happens. So what did we think of this movie? It's really bad.
It's so bad.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement. Danae, did you not enjoy it either?
I loved it.
Did you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, I didn't see this in the theater, but since I was working on the edit, I'm like, well, I'll go ahead and watch it just so I know what's going on because I think that helps you if you're working on the edit.
Sure, yeah.
And it was like people talk about they can't make it through The Irishman because of the length. I couldn't make it through this. What is this, like an hour 40?
Yeah.
I had to watch this like in 3 different sessions.
Yeah, it's
like no joke.
It's a mess. And you're working with such good people. It's just, it just sometimes it doesn't work.
I'm realizing that it's harder for me to write on a script when I don't like it. And I know I think I've said that before, but
sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it?
You just don't want to watch it, and so then, but you have to, and then it's just like this struggle of.
Then you just gotta like Darth. You just gotta, or the Emperor says, use your anger.
That's
I would
true.
say this one would have been a really hard one for me.
It was hard for me. I mean, it took me.
I think if something's just insanely stupid or something, like it's just so it's so bad it's good almost. Those are okay, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Just let the anger flow through you, Danae.
Yeah, I feel myself turning into
because you're just basically at some point, like, you're just like writing fuck over and over essentially in your head.
I'm going to do that script someday. Once I have confidence. Actually, I should do that just to troll one of the A-team. Like just
send them one.
Just send them one. It's just 100 of just like, I hate this. Like, fuck this.
And then
I hate this.
sin number 63 is, oh, that's kind of nice. And then
with no explanation, no lead in.
No lead in, no anything.
This is one of those movies where it even feels like, I mean, I know, was this F. Gary Gray? This just felt really like, it almost feels like I couldn't, like it felt like the filmmakers and the writers and stuff weren't even interested in what they were showing us.
I know. And that, to me, that came off,
that's a hard movie to watch.
And I wrote a sin about that. Right at the very, very beginning, it's like they're, Liam and Chris are like walking in and they're talking about how it's like the worst alien invasion ever. And it's just 2 dudes and these tiny guns. And I'm like, and they're acting really casual about it. Sort of like they're talking about where they're going to go order pizza later on. It's just so like, okay, so if you're not acting like this is a big deal and your organization isn't sending enough people that this is a big deal, then why am I supposed to think this is a big deal? And that's sort of like how the whole movie to me was, I don't know. I did not.
Are you 2 fans of the original? Because I love the original.
Yeah, I think the original is fine. I didn't have a bad time watching the original.
No, in fact, which one did we send? Did we send 3 recently? I can't
2.
remember. Or was it 2? Yeah, I think it was 2. I really actually like those 3 movies conceptually. And I dig some stuff about them. You know, they have a lot of the same logic problems and they have a lot of the same, you know, issues that we can quote unquote sin, but I have a good time with them. This just isn't a fun watch.
No, I think, and I'll read what Chris had to say about it, because I kind of liked what, you know, his take on it. He said that MIB International is one of those too late sequels that try to cash in on a well-known franchise name and think that if they can put some newish stars in it, people will come to see it. And this was an awful movie to sin. It was dispiriting seeing what amounts to a knockoff with a bunch of likable people in it. The story was nonsense, not fun. I think possibly the worst thing was listening to, and I'm going to say this name wrong, is it Kumail Nanjiani?
Yeah, Kumail.
I think that's actually
Kumail Nanjiani.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Say so many unfunny things, and he's a funny guy. The effects are the usual, quote, this passes for CGI nowadays, eyesores. What a joyless experience this was to sin. The challenge is to try to find a way to make our own fun video. And that really was it, was like, what is this video going to be?
Right.
And I'm still learning how to like create that script that kind of gives a feel of like an, like a tone or something. So, you know, but this was a really hard one.
I really enjoyed the scarring children run in the script.
Right? Like really fuck them up.
Yeah.
Because it was like they kept going back and zooming in on this horror.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
Thanks.
Even though Aaron didn't write on this one, I thought it was great that there was that one scene about them not sharing their transportation.
Oh yeah, technology. Mm-hmm. That was Chris.
That felt like almost that was written for Aaron.
Thank you.
There were a lot. I really working with Chris is really fun. Working with anybody on the team is really fun. But working with the A team is
a good team.
Yeah, working with A team is because that's like the goal is try to acclimate and try to learn kind of the big vibe of the feel of the.
I think by A
channels.
team you mean ball fondlers.
Can we call them ball fondlers? And working with
that's funny.
And working directly with Chris is there's been a couple of scripts where I've just learned a lot by reading his material. And this is one where he had a couple that just sort of was like, yeah, that's it. Like the one that he wrote about this footage was pulled just outside of the club. And he's like, actually, no. And then he like pulls up all the stuff. This is where it would have been, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, ooh, dang, he got you there. You know,
he showed receipts.
He showed receipts for that one.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good video to a bad movie, which is, you know.
It's great.
It's always fun.
Do have to mention the Tessa Thompson, Rebecca Ferguson comparison was outstanding.
I wrote that one.
And especially the way
I did not write that one. Just sorry, you kept talking and I was like, I gotta tell you real quick before I go on. That was all Chris.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure that people didn't think that I actually know that stuff. That was super Chris. And it was really good.
I mean, I'm guessing he did I think he did some research, but maybe he knew that offhand. I don't know.
Let's pretend he did. I loved when I read the script and it was his joke about, Rebecca Ferguson was Sia all along. I died.
Yeah.
It was so funny with that wig on. It was so funny.
Yeah.
God, and she's somebody else. I mean, they waste so many people in this movie. And I don't even get the arm. Like, they weren't even, like, really good with their alien designs. Like, because that arm made no sense.
And that's so disappointing because the other movies had such fun, creative things. In this movie, it was just like they thought because the technology was better that's what made it awesome. The technology and the effects aren't great in the first ones. It's the cleverness and the ingenuity. And
they're, quote, blue carbuncles.
Yeah.
Which I loved that they did that.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned you had to bring up the A team from Rixty Minutes, and I know we've already gone there, but I did have to say because you brought it up, some of the single frame stuff in that, like the Tyrion as full size, like that's one frame on the TV show where you see that. I laughed for 10 minutes at one frame of video.
Like, that Tyrion thing was amazing.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Yeah, that didn't happen for MIB.
No, not at all.
I don't remember a single thing I laughed at, actually.
I mean, I definitely froze it a lot, like looking around for, different things. There was that interesting moment in the car, like where they pull all the different, like, guns out of the car when they're fighting the bad guys, which in and of itself looks really cool. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I wrote a sin that was cut about like how does that car go through a car wash if everything is just like easily detachable, and then all of a sudden there's like these weapons everywhere. So at the beginning of the movie, she, is a test agent or whatever. And then everything is just like accidental. Nothing is on purpose. She could have done all this in New York, which, Chris points out. And then what if she doesn't get to become an agent and all of her files are deleted? I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And then like you're in the suit so you don't stand out. And then they send her to then she goes to Marrakesh where they do nothing but stand out in a suit.
Right.
And then everybody's okay because they're in a MIB friendly zone and they don't have to worry about zapping anybody. But as soon as they leave that zone, they just start zapping people. But how does any of that make sense?
None.
It just doesn't make any sense. Everything drives me nuts.
I'm glad you brought up Marrakesh, though, because that made me think of, I love how some of these videos, because we do so much every week, and I love how stuff starts tying together in weird ways, but like, once I saw the Marrakesh thing, all I could think of was Toby Kebbell from that Black Mirror episode he had just done, talking about Mr. Marrakesh.
Yep.
Oh.
It's amazing.
It was annoying.
Yeah.
There was also, like Chris pointed out, like this whole trinket handoff before somebody important dies. Like I didn't even realize how much that was is that a trope?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm learning words.
It definitely is. Trope, cliche. You can call it any of those things.
We also added 100 sins for the dead remote. And then a fan pointed out that we then fast forwarded later on, so the remote must have been working. They dinged us for that.
Yeah. You guys ready to move on to keeping tabs?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's get this taste of MIB out of our mouth.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
Oh, jeez.
This is the most public yet of my many humiliations.
Let's take a look at a funny story from putting together last week's content.
Does it have to be funny?
No, you know what? It doesn't. I should quit saying funny.
Okay.
Interesting.
Mine are not funny.
You're putting way too much pressure on us.
Yeah, let's just say story. We don't even give it an adjective. It can be a Google search, strange research, deleted sin, whatever you want to talk about. I'll start off with this. I wrote on Rixty Minutes, and this is a sin that got cut. So it's a deleted sin, but it also is a strange Google search I had to do. As you were talking about the poop eating scene, I said, he says this poop is delicious, and I say, and purple, because it looked really purple on my screen. Apparently on Chris's screen, it didn't look as purple, so I think that's why we cut it. Then I just Googled, what does it mean if my poop is purple? And I gotta say, you either ate some beets recently or could die within the day from intestinal bleeding. God bless you, WebMD, for narrowing it down for me.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me of a story. My brother is a vegan, right? And so he had like this one particular day, he had this beet heavy meal, and then he had a beet smoothie later on in the day, and his girlfriend wasn't used to like the vegan diet. So then the next day they both had what would like blood red like diarrhea, and they both thought that they were dying, and they both almost went to the emergency room until they realized that they had just too many beets the previous day.
That's hilarious. That's the sin I wrote.
Yeah.
And you would have like other issues, like you would be in a lot of pain probably.
Maybe.
For
it wouldn't just be oh, you know, your crap was a different color.
I'm always going to err on the side of telling people go get it checked out, you know, like you just
true story.
Yeah.
For real.
No, I'm not. Yeah, definitely get it checked out if you're concerned.
If your bowels are red or purple.
I did some Googling on poop color, and
it's amazing.
You can actually get some really psychedelic colors with certain diets. Like it's fascinating, you know, what you can do to your excrement.
Assuming they still make it the same, the Superman ice cream at Baskin Robbins turns it blue.
Oh,
so
nice.
There's probably an Instagram like just for people like taking pictures
gross.
of their... I do want to say that if you have anybody in your family who is like a physician or something, they've probably seen pictures of friends and family that just decide to take uncomfortable photos like, hey, should I be concerned? And then it's like photos of like skin tags and weird stuff and poop. My mom was a nurse for kids that were born too early, like the neonatal intensive care. And she would get pictures of people that had like just vomited, and they're like, hey, is this weird? And they'd show her this stuff, and she's like, I don't know. Go to
on that note, I will say none of y'all sent me pictures of your toes, so I stand by that nobody's toes look like that.
Oh, who wants to send that? If they could do it anonymously, maybe they would. Who knows?
So anyways, that's my keeping tabs. What do you got, Jonathan?
I only wrote on The Office, and I didn't really research anything for that one, other than I wasn't just going to be researching racist people.
Right.
What
but
is racism?
I did have a sin that we changed that I thought was kind of funny. There's a part at the beginning where the guy that's giving the speech about the guy they bring in to try to fix everything.
Mm-hmm.
He makes a comment. We believe that 99% of problems in the workplace arrive simply out of ignorance. And then the sin we ended up having in the video is the other 1% is leprechauns.
Yeah.
I originally, though, wrote the other 1% is women. And I put, or so I hear. And then I even wrote a note. I remember before, because usually we don't put notes in the script when we're sending it for the combine. But I even put a note in there. I put, if this is too on the nose and can be taken out of context, I'm good with changing it to the other 1% is leprechauns.
I think it would have been
and then
fine.
I get the combine back from Aaron, and it is leprechauns. It is no
That's
longer
right.
women,
Which
is probably the good way to go.
We all wrote something on that, which is interesting. I forget what my smart aleck commented about that was, but it was one of those. It was one of those statements, and you'll experience this the more you write. Is that somebody will say something like, "I don't know what the sin is, but I have to sin something there." Like it's just there's too much possibility there for me not to pause.
Door.
Yeah, there's an open door there that I need to pause and write
season.
Something. Yeah, it's sin hunting season.
I've done that, Jonathan, too, where I've made a sexist joke and then afterwards done something where I'm like, I'm kidding people. That was a joke. Let's move on, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
I just
That's
figured
hilarious.
I should have a backup. And,
right?
And I guess Aaron appreciated it, too, because he used the backup.
That's right.
But also leprechauns.
But leprechauns.
And that is funnier, so...
What about you, Danae?
Toy Story, there was this moment I happened to pause just as Bo Peep and Woody are climbing up to do this jump to try to get over to the cabinet to save Forky from the creepy girl doll. And on the way up, just like in every antique store that if you've ever gone antiquing, every single nook and cranny has something in it that's interesting. And I just saw that there was this, I think it was like a plate, or a napkin maybe, that said Wally Bees on it. And I instantly knew that had to mean something, but I didn't know obviously what it meant. So I went to...
This Pixar nut did.
Did you?
Oh, absolutely.
That's so cool.
There are so many Easter eggs in Toy Story 4. It is Easter Egg the movie, because that antique shop references almost every movie they've ever done.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep, it's crazy.
I did not know that. So Wall-E B is a 1984 animated short film that was produced by the company The Graphics Group, which was actually a division of Lucasfilm at the time, but then it was later renamed to Pixar.
Yep, that was their very first one.
So this was the very first animated film by John Lasseter. It was his first computer animated project within Lucasfilm, and the result of that was a successful project and others. And I'm reading this basically verbatim from Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So, and also Wikipedia is still asking for your donations.
So was Wall-E named after him?
I don't know. Maybe.
Does that have anything to do with Wall-E B?
I can't say for certain. I always assumed that, but I can't say for certain. The other one that immediately comes to mind, and again, they're all there, but the toy soldier that lets them into the antique room that has all the toys partying in it or whatever, hanging out where they meet Kaboom. That's from Tin Toy, which was like their third or fourth animated film that they ever did. Yeah, there's a lot of... That antique shop was fertile ground for Easter eggs.
Well, what I liked about that one is, Toy Story will always be the first, first, major animated film. And so, and the fact that it's supposedly the final Toy Story, although,
yeah, we'll see.
we talk about this a little bit in our outtakes later on, but, if boatloads of money just show up, maybe they'll do a offshoot, who knows? But anyways, it's just kind of cool to see like the very first project winked at inside of this franchise that sort of started it all. So.
Yeah.
Was Toy Story was the first wide release CG animate. It was the non-hand drawn, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And that's what really...
First feature-length computer-generated film.
That's really what kind of made it stand apart. And if you, like I was saying earlier, if you watch the first one or just clips from the first one and then you immediately jump into the fourth one, it is absolutely mind-blowing how much advancement has been made in this area of art. And I gave a send-off there's so many moments we could have done send-offs because it's just really beautiful. But the rain was just mind-blowing. Yeah. Well, anyways.
You think of this.
We're supposed to be done talking about it now.
I know this might be a fun topic at some point on some podcast. I don't know, but there are just a handful of films that you could truly say had a seismic change on filmmaking. Like completely changed the industry. I think you could put The Avengers in that list. I think
Citizen Kane for sure.
I think you put Citizen Kane. That was another one I was going to mention. I think you put Citizen Kane in that list. No. It's true.
I haven't seen that one.
And I think you could put Toy Story in that list. And beyond that, there may be a couple more. Maybe
Jaws probably, because I think that pretty much changed the way.
I think that's right.
Created the blockbuster.
It's kind of a Jaws Star Wars combo. They were both there around the mid 70s. It kind of created that new summer blockbuster thing. But really for Toy Story to be in that kind of company is not it's not exaggerated. So yeah, that's a good point. Ready to head on to the comment section?
I have one more.
Oh, go for it.
Is that okay?
No, yeah, of course.
You're
Danae Hughes. You can do whatever you want.
I don't know. Is it funny, Danae?
Is it? I wrote a sin from MIB that was, this movie has such a boner for Agent H. H is for hot, horny, hand job, herpes. What? So I kind of enjoyed that one. But I found, as I was trying to think of H words that were sort of like sexualized H words.
You did a Google search for sexualized H words?
Then I found a website called Sex Lexus.
Oh, yeah. Been there many times.
I haven't.
I'm just kidding, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure you're not. And that's where I was able to kind of find all kinds of words that start with H. Some of them I didn't know, and some of them I didn't want to know more about. Isn't it eye-opening?
People have words for lots of things.
I just realized pretty quickly as I was writing it, just to keep it short and simple.
And that's fine. Go live your life and do stuff.
But Sex Lexus is there for all of us. And I just thought that maybe this was the place to tell you about it.
Yeah.
And that's all I have for Keeping Tabs today.
Very nice. Well, let's move on to the comment section.
I want to know what you're thinking.
I appreciate your honesty. You're a real straight shooter.
You are the ones who are the ball lickers.
Let's each pick a comment or two if you're Danae to respond to from the week's videos.
I have 5.
Oh, or 5. We'll also do some general feedback here as well. What do you got in your comment section? Danae, since you've got 5, why don't you throw a couple at us?
Well, since we have a Twitter now, I tweeted out that we're going to be covering today, and I got a question from Brady, or comment/question, so I thought I'd just throw it in here. Is that okay with you?
All right. Now, this is fine, but what we should do in the future is just have you pick the feedback questions. Because you are so connected to the fans, which I love, and you've got the new Twitter handle. What I'll do is I will give you the sign into the email as well, and you can pick a question for us each week.
Oh, I see. This is a passive-aggressive way for you not to do your job.
There's nothing passive about it.
Fight!
It's all aggressive.
From Toy Story, from Sarah C., she says, I have a hunch that toys come alive when they have been completely assembled. This is really interesting to me. And are touched by a human. New toys would be too scared to move around humans because of instinct, but older toys could build up the courage if they wanted to. But we are not going to talk about whether that skunk RV is a toy or not. If it is, that's messed up. And that is so true.
Right?
Because the toy, it technically was a toy because it was like a mobile thing, but it had been fashioned from like a skunk plush toy, which is also supposed to be a thing.
We know this is a thing. Sid put his toys, multiple toys together in Toy Story.
But it doesn't appear to be alive.
But it should be.
Because she's talking about the sheep driving it. So, yeah, what was that? Are they inside of a living thing? Are they not? Good point.
Yes.
But then also to her other points that she was making about whether toys come alive or not, wasn't there a moment when they were inside of a toy store and toys were talking before they had been touched by a human and when they were still in their packaging?
Yeah, the buzz packaging.
Okay.
Yeah.
So her thoughts, I think, were pretty on to something, but at the same time, it doesn't hold up when you look at the whole franchise.
Nothing does. The rules of sentience do not hold up in the Toy Story world.
But good point, Sarah.
Yes.
And thanks for your comment.
Absolutely. What do you got, Jonathan?
So I only had, I'll just do this one. And I thought this was funny because I totally wrote this in the office script, assuming there would be people doing this while they were watching the video. But RS on YouTube said for the Office episode, every office has one or two disgusting, non-health conscious people that eat at their desk. Me looks up from the lunch I'm currently eating at my office desk. What? And I used to, like, when I was not doing this full time and I was at my day job, I would listen to the podcast and watch the videos while eating lunch at my desk. So I did slyly know there would be people doing that as I insulted them. So I was quite excited about that.
Well, you're talking to somebody who licked their desk to prove a point that it wasn't all that unhygienic and then got sick for 6 weeks. So
very sick.
Very sick. So
never doing that. Thank you.
Don't lick your desk, number one.
Number one.
Number two, probably don't eat there either.
No,
unless you put down that paper towel, as Jonathan has said.
No, I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do when you're in an office. But yeah, put the paper towel down.
Yeah. Also, don't eat your coworkers' Pop-Tarts without asking. I learned that.
Or really food in general.
Yeah. No, just Pop-Tarts. That's the only one that you're not allowed to eat. All right. That was actually one of mine. So I've got one other one that I will do, and then we'll just leave it all to Danae after that. This comes to us from the Toy Story video from Dennis. Says, I think she can't just talk when her string is pulled because her mouth would move, and that isn't a feature of that toy. And again, as we've said before, the second you try to start figuring this stuff out, you're probably already in a downward spiral. Mm-hmm. Woody talks to Sid in the first one. So,
but he does that through his pull string.
Yeah, but he says the things he wants to say.
Oh, yeah. And so does Buzz, it seems.
Yeah.
Or it was very convenient in this one.
So it's just hard to really think of all this stuff.
And you got to know the writers. It's so brilliant. They're just like, who cares anymore? let's just make a fun film.
And why do we feel like? It's
because we want to know if our toys are alive, Aaron.
Listen, why do we feel like the toys have to move their mouth to talk? It's not like they have an internal respiratory system that is pushing air through a voice box. Like they are. Like Woody is plastic all the way through. He has no throat. What if he does and you don't know it until you dissect him? How is Woody speaking? Like, how is he making noise? It has to be sight. It has to be mental.
Psionic. Yeah, what is that? When you can like communicate with your brain.
I'm just saying whatever that is where you speak with your brain, that's what Woody is doing because he doesn't have a voice box anyway. So why would he have to move his lips? All right, Danae, back to you. What else you got?
The other comments I really loved were from the Men in Black. Whenever the joke about like high T, low T, medium T, simmer T, like all that.
Stupid alphabet naming system is one of the dumbest things ever invented for a movie.
Yeah, I was really proud of that one because I'm like, this alphabetical nightmare, it's not working. But then there was this nice thread started by, well, there's several of them, but this one was by Fath Renner, and then Manic and Lizard and Scientist Cat and Estor and Merrick and all these people kind of jumped in on it. But it was all these people kind of giving other T ones, which we really like when it happens when people jump in and sort of just like add to a joke. So there was Ice T, Mr. T, Pepper T, and MIT. So I thought those were all really brilliant. So
nice.
Thanks everybody for making our jokes sing even more.
Very appreciated. Also appreciated when you get in contact with us. You can hit us up behindthesinnspod@gmail.com, behindthesinnspod@gmail.com,
or our Twitter,
or
CinemaSins BTS.
CinemaSins BTS. Either way, hit us up with a question. Danae will pick one for the week. And we will answer it.
You'll pick the one from email, and I'll pick one from Twitter.
We don't have time to add more.
But you don't understand.
One question a week. What do we got, Danae?
The one being tweeted was not questions, but like suggestions about wanting to have a segment where Danae recaps a movie that she hasn't seen. And then, so that was from Aaron. And then Scott says, it doesn't even have to be one that you send. Just pick a movie and have her guess what the plot is. Also, we need 3 or 4 times the amount of Aaron reading conversations with his kids to make up for last week.
We'll just count the Santa Claus story as my kids' conversation for this week. And
That's not bad. That's not a bad idea.
We'll get back into it next week. But I do want to hear you explain to people what the movie Newsies is about.
Okay, so Newsies is about news. And the Z's part of it is kind of like an itis where you have like an inflammation of. So it's a story about the inflammation of news. I know that there's kids in it. So kind of like the spreading of chickenpox. It's the spreading of news. And then they sing about it because they're bored.
That would have been a better movie.
Aaron Aaron loves Newsies.
I know. That's why I said that.
I actually feel like I know more about Newsies because of your love of it.
Yeah.
But
I don't know that I've seen... no, I did see it. I get it and Swing Kids confused because they came out around the same time.
Right.
I love them both.
So there's this overlord.
I'm sure you just got like a Robert Sean Leonard poster in your office.
I do.
There's an overlord who owns the news people, the news stuff. And then he forces all the children to go out and sell newspapers. And when there's no news, he makes news because he's actually like a criminal on the side. And so one of the kids finds out. And so they are doing their investigation. And so it's this race against the clock to whose news story gets posted in the newspaper the next day, because if they can get into the paper before the morning and they can get them all printed and out to the world, then everybody will know that the news guy is actually a bad guy. But then he's trying to get his news into the paper to sell news about the murders.
Oh,
that's what that one's about.
Newsies the one with Christian Bale?
Yeah.
Is Robert Sean Leonard in both of them, or is he just in Swing Kids?
He's just in Swing Kids.
I don't even know what Swing Kids is. Swing Kids is the sequel to Newsies. Once the evil overlord had been discovered and ousted, then this movie picks up.
Why is it called Swing Kids?
Playgrounds, obviously.
All right. There. Danae explains a movie she hasn't seen. Here's the question for this week. Hey, B team, 2 questions for you. I loved hearing Creasy on the podcast and was incredibly intrigued when he was talking about Jeremy's outtakes. Any chance those will be made public at some point? That's an easy answer. It is no. Not for any particular reason other than it's just, it's a mess.
It would be really interesting if that was somebody had the mental resources and time to listen to his narrations and then find those moments whenever he has like a little mini rant or something and know what that was about and hold it back, and then we could, but that would take quite a bit of effort.
And we're not going to release
and a lot of it's
raw.
like internal stuff too.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah.
There's just too much internal stuff. It's
I gotta admit, I'm kind of interested in it though. I think it'd be kind of fun to hear Jeremy.
I apologize. It's not happening.
Rant. No, I'm not saying it should. I'm saying it would be interesting.
Yeah.
At least my version.
Number 2, what are some of the best and worst examples of shows where the pilot is radically different from the rest of the show? For me, I love the Constantine pilot and the rest of the show for that matter, but due to off-screen issues between the pilot and airtime, the pilot is totally useless and makes the rest of the show a giant hole of what could have been.
I watched that show, and I do not remember that.
Did you guys have answers? Danae, did you come up with anything for this?
Yeah, I really had to think about it. I had to go read some blogs just to be kind of reminded, but Seinfeld came to mind because the pilot for Seinfeld, it wasn't Kramer, it was Kessler.
Yeah, and Elaine wasn't anywhere to be
wasn't
found.
in there. Yeah. Although I think the general vibe of the show kind of continued. The other one that I thought about was House, but that was more about visually. Like I will always have House pilots stand out as one of the most awkward pilots I've ever seen. And I think I watched it years ago, and I think it's maybe even on the list of things to maybe do on CinemaSins someday. I don't know, but it's actually, I asked you to do it once CinemaSins launched. I wrote you a message. I was like, I'm going to join the rest of the millions of people saying, do this instead, because the entire pilot is bathed in an orange light. But the lighting guy was it was so off. And so it looks like it's just so orange, and all the makeup is like not done well. So just they kind of were just putting out like a true pilot to see if it would get picked up. But I couldn't really speak to any of the other ones because a lot of the ones that were listed in the blogs that I was reading and stuff. Yeah. It's like it never released to the public pilot, so you have to kind of like know where to find them. So when you go and you look at something, it's not going to be included on like your DVDs that you get or whatever you watch or whatever you stream. It's like whatever was pitched to try to see if it get picked up. So
I watched House. I don't remember that. That's interesting. But I mean, it's also been however many years since I've seen the pilot. So probably when it aired. It's
so different because from that episode to the next one, they clearly got the lighting stuff figured out. But and maybe it was my screen, but I've watched it twice. And I remember thinking it both times, like everything is just this yellow tone.
I loved House. I love Hugh Laurie. I'm excited. I just saw he's coming back in some like Star Trek-y kind of thing as like the captain of the ship. And
really?
It looks like basically a takeoff on his House character.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Oh God, what is that? It's a comedy, right? It's on like Netflix or something.
It's on a streaming service. Yeah. So that could be really interesting. I didn't really have any. I thought of Seinfeld as well. New Girl is kind of similar like that. New Girl's pilot has a completely different character in it.
Really?
Thing continues.
Well, Damon Wayans Jr. plays him, right? And he
exactly.
came back, though, didn't he?
He did. He came back into the show. So it was, it was interesting
because he was also doing a really great show, which all of a sudden I cannot remember the name of it.
Yeah, and so he couldn't make both work. 30 Rock is similar as well. 30 Rock has a lot of problems with its pilot that they figured out pretty quickly. The one I want to mention, though, is Game of Thrones. Now, you may not think the Game of Thrones pilot is that much different than the rest. Well, that's because they reshot 90% of the Game of Thrones pilot. They actually recast like 3 of the main actors. Like, can you imagine putting a pilot that expensive together and then being like, this is awful, it doesn't work, recast these 3 roles and reshoot 90% of it?
Was it a different creator too?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Specifically.
I feel like there was, or maybe the 2 guys were still involved, but I feel like there was somebody else that was there that was like a bigger name.
Here's my question: is it available to watch somewhere? That would be fascinating to watch.
That's what I was saying about some of the other pilots that I was reading. It's like, what was another one that was mentioned that I watched? Oh, it was Liz Lemon, 30, you mentioned it.
Yeah, 30 Rock.
30 Rock, yeah. I think I was reading that one had a pilot that wasn't like a released pilot.
Right.
Just to kind of give a general idea of what things would be like. I do think that'd be fascinating to watch.
I agree.
Because it's got to feel like like a sketch or,
I had one, it's pretty obvious, especially for me, but Star Trek, the original series, the original pilot was called The Cage. And that's where Captain Pike comes from, who they actually brought back for the J.J. Abrams movies. I can't think of the actor's name, but the president of everything, who we always make jokes is always the president. Plays him in the movies. But in the original pilot, he was the main captain, not Kirk. And Spock, I believe, was the only character that actually stayed in the series. Now, they kind of brought him back into the mythos, and he has remained a character that is in Trek lore, but that was the original pilot, and it's actually really good. But I'm definitely glad they went the direction they went.
You're talking about Bruce Greenwood, right?
Bruce Greenwood played him in the J.J. Abrams movies. Yes.
Right. Nice. And
you can still watch that. That actually, I think it even comes with a lot of the season sets and stuff. I mean, that's very widely available. But it's really interesting to go back and watch it.
Well, we appreciate your question. If you'd like to ask a question, you can send it to behindthesinspod@gmail.com. Danae will pick one out, and
Aaron will pick one out of the email. I'll pick one off of Twitter at CinemaSins BTS.
All right, let's move on to our Beyond the Sins.
To infinity and beyond.
Somewhere beyond my wild history.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Let's chat about something else from the world of pop culture that we've seen recently. Danae is doing a dance, which I'm guessing means she's excited.
Yeah,
to tell you about whatever mobile game she's playing now.
Okay, so this mobile game I've had for a long time now, and that's why I'm excited about it. And you're probably going to be like, that's the lamest thing ever. But, sometimes you have to have a game that doesn't require brain power, and you just want to mindlessly play it.
Sure.
And Solitaire is one of the best mindless games ever. And there is a version of it called Solitaire Decked Out. And I really like this app. I've played this game, this particular version of Solitaire, this particular app. I think
is it a collection of Solitaire games or a specific
it's
one Solitaire?
Straight Solitaire.
Oh, okay.
It's just the traditional Solitaire where you can change it to be that the deck deals you 3 cards at once or 1 card at once. It's incredibly.
Well, what makes it different then?
Okay, so it's a really well made app. You can. I know. This sounds so lame, and I knew coming in, but I'm excited about it anyway.
Great. I love it.
I'm an app snob.
Yeah.
Layout is important. The smoothness and transition of how you play is important.
It's just really well made.
The ads ratio is important. If you
preferably as close to 0 as possible.
The color scheme important. And so sometimes I'll download a Solitaire game or some kind of a game, and it reminds me of an old computer
clunky,
game,
and there's ads all over the place.
You were such a jerk.
No, I'm being serious. I'm with you.
Oh, okay. Oh, I've won you over. You're not being snarky. Gotcha.
I'm connecting to the part you're connecting to.
Okay, so the thing I like about this particular one is it's just you straight plays Game of Solitaire.
Yeah.
And then they add fun little bonuses as you play. So it's nothing to do with having to buy stuff, nothing to do with anything. And there's all these different deck versions that you unlock. So you can, if you want to change, like the one that I've got it on right now is like the UFO Nightscape. And so as you play, you like earn coins, and then you unlock a chest, and then all of a sudden you like a UFO actually comes over and sucks up little sheep as you play. And I'm literally just playing solitaire. I'm not interacting with the scenery, but it's a fun way to keep you coming back to the app, and it genuinely is done well. So
Solitaire decked out.
I recommend it.
Very nice. I really wasn't trying to give you flack.
It's okay if you are.
Once I connected to what you were trying to say, which is like, if you love Solitaire, here's one that's done well, that you don't have to put up with all the junk. Because I've downloaded apps too where it's just like, this app's a mess. I kind of like the game underneath it, but no, I get it.
And it's just a fun, it's like a little fun thing. There's like one where it's food. There's one where it's like a library, and there's just different versions. I really enjoy it. My dad, he plays one that's just super, it looks almost exactly like the computer one, and it's just really basic. And that's totally fine. But it's just really clunky. When I played it, I thought, maybe you could try this one, but this one's too fancy for him. Because
now your task is to find me the best version of Minesweeper. That's your task now.
That's my jam. Minesweeper was my favorite game on my like old computers that I used to have access to when I was little, and I wasn't allowed to do anything on them except for just play like Solitaire, Minesweeper, and then write my homework.
Yeah. And
I used to pretend every time I played Minesweeper that I was saving the world.
Of course you did.
I'd be like, okay, this is it, Danae. The whole world depends on you. I'd play Minesweeper, and then I would lose, and I'd be like, okay, this one's the one.
Of course.
If you don't, okay, it's 3 out of 5. I just do that all the time. Memories.
Pam, though, would need free cell. You'd have to find a Solitaire version that had free cell in it for Pam. So
we had so many sins written about that scene. I remember.
That was actually now I'm just thinking about it. That was my 99% of workplace problems are caused by whatever. Yeah. And then we did the leprechaun sin. Mine was, that doesn't make sense because the other 1% doesn't a lot for lazy coworkers who play free cell on their computers or something like that.
You found it.
I found it. I remembered.
Yeah.
What about you, Jonathan?
So this movie is 2 years old, but I just watched it for the first time because it's available on Amazon Prime now, and it's perfect time of year to bring this up. I'm really kind of surprised it's not a bigger discussion than it is. But have you seen Anna and the Apocalypse, Aaron?
No.
Okay, so Anna and the Apocalypse, which is now available on Amazon Prime, it came out in 2017. I remember it at the time. It got some buzz. It played at festivals and all that stuff. But it's a zombie apocalypse comedy, and it's a British zombie apocalypse comedy musical set at Christmas.
Wow,
that's a lot.
That is a lot.
It is wonderful. It has some of the best original music I've heard in a movie since probably Sing Street. That's kind of what it reminded me of.
Nice.
And it's really funny. I would say if you're talking about like zombie apocalypse type comedies, I would say it's better than Zombieland. I would say it's pretty close to Shaun of the Dead territory.
Wow.
I've seen Shaun of the Dead so many times though. It's kind of hard to say that, but I would say it's definitely one I'm going to do multiple viewings of.
Nice.
But it's like I said, it's kind of like a different type of Christmas movie, I guess. If you're looking for something like that, if you like stuff like Zombieland and Shaun of the Dead, I highly recommend it. It's got a really cool young cast. Ella Hunt is the only one I recognize. She's in that new Apple Plus show. She has a character on there, Dickinson, in that show with can't think of her name all of a sudden. But anyway, she is in that show. The director is, oddly enough, John McPhail. He hasn't really done anything else since. The writers haven't really done anything else since, Alan McDonald and Ryan McHenry, but it's a very smart movie. It's like I said, it's got really good music in it, and it's really funny. It's It's really, really good, and I think it's one that deserves to be brought back to attention, especially since you can watch it now. A lot of people have Amazon Prime, and I believe it's also like on Stars or something if you have access to that. So it's out there for the holiday season viewing, and I highly recommend it.
Very nice. Anna and the Apocalypse.
Yep.
I have been immersed in movies. I got my nominations in for the Critics' Choice Awards.
Did you get them all watched?
Just a couple days ago. I mean, I got as many watched as I could.
That's a lot.
And
because you were like doing like 100 a day.
I was doing 3 or 4 a day. Yeah.
Crazy.
I watched 22 over the course of last week. 22 movies. So I've got a lot to choose from. I'm going to pick one that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, but is worthy to check out. And it's called Dark Waters. This is Mark Ruffalo starring in a true story about the guy who uncovered DuPont's duplicitous way of handling their Teflon chemical waste. And so it's a fascinating look at just what companies get away with, how damaging it is, how quickly it can impact. It's handled in an interesting way. The court case is because this is about the lawyer who took it on. And usually when you're dealing with a lawyer going up a big company, against a big company, it all culminates to a big court case. And that's, the majority of the last 30 minutes of the movie is this, hearing or whatever. But this is really about like the work he puts in outside of the court. And then the actual court stuff is almost secondary to that. But it's still interesting and it's still good. And I really enjoyed it. So it's one I think a lot of people will just miss. It'll just kind of fly by because everything's coming out right now. And
I believe it got a wider release this past weekend.
I think so.
I know it's in theaters by me. I'm looking forward to checking it out when I have
I think so. I think it's really good. So I definitely wanted to mention it. Let people know to check it out.
Do it.
Well, there you go. That's going to do it for Behind the Sins this week, guys. Everybody get everything out that they needed to say?
Yes.
So. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure all hearts were clear. Don't forget to make sure you are subscribed to the podcast and go ahead and leave a comment or rating as well. You can hang out with us on Twitter. I'm at Aaron Dicer. She is at Danae Says.
I am.
Either you want to spell it or you don't want to spell it. I just need to know.
DENEESAYS.
Thank you. He is at Sam Lewis 13. You can also check out the podcast Twitter at CinemaSins BTS. So for Jonathan Watkins, Danae Hughes, and myself, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Send any feedback to behindthesinspod@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe or message us at Twitter. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
This microphone makes me depressed. What? Look.
Wah, wah.
It's just like this little limp noodle. Did you ever order the piece that needs to be replaced for this?
No.
Why?
I got like...
you about to talk about dying again?
No. Yes, I died.
I died tonight.
Can I just play the death card?
Yeah.
Can I just play that anytime now?
Yeah,
can I?
That's
much fun.
Is it?
Oh, sorry. I totally missed that deadline, guys.
Oops. I died.
Sorry.
The script that's due in 3 months. Sorry about that.
I'm going to die again probably.
No. It went from ha-ha to wait. Crazy weekend because you put up a gigantic television.
That was part of it. Yeah, it's great.
Were you so nervous about that? Considering that TV costs more than $5.
You're blasting out your microphone.
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Couldn't be.
Then who? You're still really loud. I have a feeling if you got excited, it would blast out again.
Get excited. Let's talk about pizza. Woohoo.
That's the top of your excitement list, Danae, is pizza. Let's get excited. Let's talk about pizza. Silence. If it's blasting out, we'll try to fix some stuff. Danae is beatboxing.
Wiki, wiki, wiki. Oh, well, I'm right here. Hi. I feel so put over in the corner. Hi. Aaron, what'd you do?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Whoa. You did it, Aaron.
Well.
You fixed it.
I guess I did. It's a wonderful thing where it's like, yeah, I'm a genius. I have no clue what I just did. Awesome.
Possum awesome. Hi, you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Aw. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hey, how was the cheer competition?
It was good. I mean, they won, but they only had one team competing against them in their group who was not good. They dropped my daughter. They caught her this time, which was nice. But
this time,
my kid's already, she's 2.5 and she's already like 7 foot tall. She pretty much is never going to be a flyer.
Yeah.
So I kind of hope she goes like volleyball, which still has its own set of injuries. Because you're diving on the floor.
They got hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything. I mean, nothing is completely safe.
Like
some things more than others.
A professional dungeon master.
There you go.
Be super proud.
That is totally a thing now.
It is.
I mean, we could get electrocuted right now. So, what we're doing is not even safe.
Nothing is safe, really. Even if you're healthy like Aaron, your heart might just hate you.
I feel like I'm that weird guy, though. I'm like you, Aaron. I'm really excited about that Planet of the Apes movie.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like I'm weird, though, that in the franchises that I love, I get excited when they announce something new for them.
Sure.
I feel like most people don't.
Well, they were just talking on Sincast, and since Jeremy gave his version of the Round and Round that he and I do, I will give my version of the Round and Round that we do.
Oh, my.
I've not listened to Sincast yet.
Some back and forth podcast
That's
punching.
Right. That's right.
Jeremy is not a fan for the most part of stuff
No.
this.
Well, they started using the word unnecessary again, and it's one of those things where Jeremy and I go back and forth. Specifically, in this case, they were talking about the Breaking Bad movie El Camino. And Jeremy and I did have a long discussion about that. And we just come from different perspectives, but I don't understand the perspective of ruining something by adding more. It doesn't make sense to me because in my mind, you can always just have what you had and pretend the new one doesn't exist if you want to. It's all make-believe, guys. Like, you don't have to.
I mean, the only thing that sometimes Chris and I talked about this in the Frozen 2 mini pod, but, like, for instance, in Frozen 2, not to be spoilery, but they continue the story of the parents. Let's just say that. So when you watch Frozen now, if you've seen Frozen 2, you know where they're going with that.
Right. You don't know this, but as soon as you said not to be spoilery about Frozen 2, Danae...
I'm not making a spoiler.
No.
It's not spoilery.
No.
It's not a spoiler at all.
Listen, it doesn't matter. Danae threw her headphones across the room. She now has both fingers in her ears and is making a face like maybe from the Dark Crystal.
No, I'm saying
the different perspective we come from is I'm coming from a consumer's perspective. I'm coming from, go ahead and present it to me. If it's great, I'll love it. If it's not, I'll just discard it, He's coming from a creator's perspective, which is, and I think he even said this on the podcast, which is when this is made, something else isn't being made. And so if this unnecessary thing is happening, it's taking energy and money away from other new things that could be happening. And I don't know that I 100% buy that either. I don't think it's a zero-sum game. Like,
I don't either. There's a lot of creators out there. So
yeah.
And I guess I'm just being mad at like studios for what movies they release is just wasted energy for me. And these things are going to continue.
Yeah, just don't. And if people don't see them, they won't. But people are going to see them, so they do. I don't know.
But I mean, even then, like, I think it's funny that people think there's never going to be another Terminator movie. I mean, there's totally going to be something.
Well, it was hilarious when, coming out of Joker, everybody was like, oh, that's a one-off. They're not going to do any more. And it's just like, $1 billion. You just wait.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm
looking forward to 2023 when we see, like, Two-Face, the movie.
He did say that he might change his mind if truckloads of money show up.
Oh, for the sequel? Yeah.
That's true. No, you're talking about Jeremy said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeremy was talking about doing the Ables. He's like, I guess I might do Ables 5 if they showed up with $10 million at my door. So, like, I think he understands the commerce of it, but at the same time, I think it's a worthwhile discussion, but I can't fault a piece of content for existing.
Okay.
Like, I don't know.
I disagree with you guys. I do like the pureness of a story being a story.
Right.
I kind of
But don't you have experience?
I don't think a sequel ruins that.
And I also think, like, I understood his thing, like going back and changing the beginning or changing the end of things. Because I've experienced where I've watched something and then you have to kind of imagine what happens next because you love the story so much. I've had that happen in books and movies. And to think that somebody might go back in and then show me their version of that reality, and then it's just like, it kind of bums me out because then then I'm in it. It's hard to almost erase it. So like Game of Thrones, for example, I was bummed almost the entire time watching Game of Thrones because I want to know what the author's version of it was. And I knew really early on this was going to go in a direction that he hadn't even come up with yet. And it just didn't feel right. And now he's like, yeah, I'm bummed with the ending. And I'm like, yeah, so write the book. I get what we're saying, but there are sometimes when you just want to leave a story behind, but you're right, Jonathan, like when you're talking about Star Trek, I didn't even think about that as, is it even something where my interaction with Star Trek or Next Gen or whatever, I didn't even know that there was source material for that. And that's my interaction was those stories. So yeah, you're right. If it was something that nobody did, but I'm not saying nobody do it. I'm just saying I have a hard time with it and can relate to what Jeremy was talking about.
I think it comes from a place of ownership. We experience something and we maintain a sense of ownership in that content. We maintain a sense of ownership of the story.
Yeah, because we have like an experience with it.
And here's the stuff I've put in the story and that kind of stuff. And then once we've gripped onto that ownership, we don't want to give it back. We don't want the creator to have a chance to, do something that might be different than we saw it or whatever the case may be. For me, I have just let go of that. Like it doesn't, you can't ruin Toy Story for me by making Toy Story 2. You just can't. I don't know if that makes me different. I know and because of that, the word unnecessary is just not an adjective that matters to me. It doesn't matter to me if a piece of content is necessary or unnecessary, because really at the end of the day, 99.9% of all content is unnecessary. It's all unnecessary, We go round and round. It's one of my favorite conversations with Jeremy. We have an entire podcast with the two of us.
And we're spending our entire podcast doing the same thing. Today I was at Sonic grabbing myself a little breakfast before the show. Not abnormal. And one of the girls that's usually there, she was bringing my food to me. And she was talking about how she's not going to be there very much longer. And she's got to get a job that pays more, even though she loves the staff and she loves the people. And so, and then I handed her $5 and my bill was $5.95. And I just assumed she wanted to hang out and talk. And then after, we were talking about her life and her moving on, she's like, so, I saw that you were trying to pay with a card. Did you want to, use the card? And I was like, oh, yeah, did that go through? And I was super confused. Didn't realize I was 95 cents short. She says, well, I'll just cover the 95 cents. I would normally do that. But somebody, when they paid earlier, they stiffed $3 that I have to pay back out of my own money now. And I was like, then I realized what was going on. And I gave her my card because I couldn't find 95 cents in change. And then I just gave her the $5 in cash because I was like, just take it as a tip because you walked out to the car. It's been a weird day or whatever. Yeah. She was really shocked by this. And so because I can't just be like, cool, have a great day. I was like, I did the thing where I was trying to say something cool and maybe inspirational. And I said, just you go live your life and do stuff.
It's good advice.
What
Go live your life and do stuff.
That's what I said.
All right, listen, this is a new thing. This is a behind the scenes pod challenge. Go give somebody $5. Just give them $5, and when they ask why, you say, you just go live your life and do stuff.
Do stuff.
I love it. It's the do stuff challenge.
Go buy something pretty.
Oh my God.
It's the do stuff challenge.
We
want to hear your stories.
Yeah, tell us how they reacted, because she looked at me
sounds like a mountain.
Okay. And just turned and walked away. Sort of awkward moment. I usually can at least speak to someone's soul, and this time I'm just like, do stuff.
I'm just imagining
so awkward.
Handing somebody $5 with this look in my eye and being like, hey, go live your life and do stuff.
Right. What's that?
Danae, what about you?
Yeah, I got a pee, so thanks for asking.
Should we do a corrections section for the outtakes of mistakes from last week?
Yes.
Like when Jonathan said that Barrett and he wrote and it was actually me.
I know I was going to say, Danae, you'll have really fond memories of writing with Aaron because clearly I do. So.
Yes.